What materials can do is that it's not just about the fact that they can suggest a certain kind of human labour, a certain kind of human work, a certain kind of intensely exhausting human labour, which is, I think, what's implied by the object, but it also can suggest that materials are much older a lot of the time than humans. And so you get a sense of human time in the context of much deeper time. I'm Ben Street, I'm an art historian, and I'm delighted to present this series for Masterpiece entitled Encountering Beauty Through the Material World. This month I'm going to be talking about stone, and I've chosen 4 objects that I think really reflect a diverse way in which artists over the centuries and from a really wide range of different geographical locations have used stone and thought about stone in really interesting ways. So the overarching theme is about materials, but it's also about kind of human connection. So I've chosen objects that I think really express both of those ideas at the same time. So the first object that I've chosen is an object that I've been pretty obsessed with, I think, for many, many years, since I first saw it in its home in the Neues Museum in Berlin, one of the most beautiful museum spaces I've been to. It's an Egyptian head. There's belief that he was a priest because of his shaved head. If he was a priest, he would have been a fairly high status individual, but you don't need to know that, do you, to see this object? When you see this object, it's apparent that he must be a person of pretty high status because the object exists, because it's been made from this incredibly hard stone called green schist. Now, the amazing thing about green schist is it's, as you can probably tell even from this image, it's this incredibly dense and hard to work material. So there's a wonderful thing going on, I think, because we look at an object like this which is intensely naturalistic. So you look at the folds of the ear, and you look at the line around the mouth, and you look at the creases between the eyes, and it feels like this is a living, breathing person standing in front of you. But the only reason it looks so naturalistic is because of the work that's gone into it. It's because of the labour that's been pressed into service to make that skin so shiny and so, let's say, realistic. So this is where it gets very interesting for me as an art historian, because it's both highly realistic and highly artificial at the same time. Now look, this is an anonymous man. This is a head of somebody who perhaps once lived, but perhaps it's an idealized portrait. But where it keeps its kind of power for me, or its kind of force, is the fact that the stone itself is communicative. It's not just that we have this naturalistic image of a man, it's that the stone itself has a certain kind of power over us, I think. When I look at Egyptian sculpture, when I look at granite, when I look at other kind of materials that Egyptian sculptors used, the material itself has a kind of force that is already kind of compelling and exciting. So I've always gone back to, this object is like a, it's to scale. So it's like you're looking at a real person's head, and the smoothness of it makes it feel kind of tactile. But at the same time, the smoothness of the way that's been made invites a certain kind of tactile imagination. You imagine yourself touching it. You imagine the coldness of it. The fact that when you touch that object, you would get a sense of it being stone, but at the same time, something else will be going on in your mind, which is that it would feel as though you were touching a real person's face in some ways. So that's, for me, the exciting kind of thing that's going on between the very realistic and the very artificial at once. It's almost kind of slightly beyond belief. But the point is, what it does is it reveals what the stone is like underneath. It reveals actually where it comes from, and it suggests to us that actually there's a sense of deep geological time in an object like this. It's not just a kind of exceptionally realistic object, it's also something that belongs to ancient history that is way older than human history. What materials can do is that it's not just about the fact that they can suggest a certain kind of human labour, a certain kind of human work, a certain kind of intensely exhausting human labour, which is, I think, what's implied by the object, but it also can suggest that materials are much older a lot of the time than humans. And so you get a sense of human time in the context of much deeper time.